Hey, this is Jared Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And holy moly, I may have just recorded the most content-rich podcast episode ever. Now, I recorded a podcast episode just now with Nimmin, who is a YouTube gun who has over 700,000 YouTube subscribers. Now, Nick and I in this podcast episode actually talk about why we should be using YouTube to drive sales and how big YouTube is, how big a search engine it is, why we'd be silly not to dive into YouTube and use it as a sales funnel for our online businesses. We also dive into how to actually start your YouTube channel and what you actually need to know to be successful in creating a great YouTube channel that's going to drive sales. We also talk about what you need to focus on and put attention into before you actually go away and start creating videos, some of the steps you need to understand and some of the things you need to do to prepare to create great videos. Then we talk about how to create those videos as well and what type of videos to actually create, and what type of videos to actually record, why we should use a person in our videos and how that allows a connection with our avatar and our audience. We also talk about what equipment we should be using and why we should be using specific equipment as well. Now, this is a content-rich, jam-packed video full of awesomeness. If you want to use YouTube as a sales channel or sales funnel for your online business, it's such a valuable episode. I know you're going to love it. Before we get stuck into this podcast episode, I want to tell you that this podcast is not the only way I can help you for free. I have my due diligence framework. It's a 2.0 version, which everybody's been raving about. And what it does is it helps you know what to look out for when you're buying a website business, including questions to ask the seller and, everything you need, including links to share with you and show you where to go to get the information you need to complete a complete and excellent package of due diligence for a website business you're looking at buying. You can get this on my site, buyingonlinebusiness.com/free resources. And on that page, there's other awesome free resources you can check out there too. Let's get stuck in this podcast episode. If you own an online business, chances are what has been working for you will not work for you in 2021 and beyond. Why? Because the online landscape, from algorithms to ads and commission rates, are changing monthly. And if you're not on top of these coming changes, you will be left behind, or worse, no longer in business. This is why I'm hosting a free online summit where I've invited the biggest names in website acquisitions, SEO, and digital marketing to share with you what's going to change and how you can prepare for it. People like Stephen Spencer, who Tony Robbins says is the best SEO guy in the business. Digital marketers that manage tens of millions of dollars in ad spend, and website brokers who've sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of businesses. From this free event, you will walk away with incredible principles, strategies, and tactics in both SEO and digital marketing that are going to help you scale your online business through 2021 and beyond. Click the link to grab a seat. Now, seats are filling up fast, and if you miss the boat on what's to come in 2021, you run the risk of being left behind. So click the link and grab a seat. Hey everyone, welcome back, and a special thanks to you, Nick, for coming on. Greatly appreciate having you here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I'm always pumped to talk about YouTube and help people just understand the potential of the platform and how to take full advantage of the platform and all of that. So thank you for reaching out and giving me this opportunity to talk more about YouTube. I appreciate it.
Isn't it fun talking about what you absolutely love? I don't really talk to my close friends about business, but on the podcast, I just get to speak as much as I like about all the things that I'm learning, all the things that I love about it. It's fun, isn't it?
Absolutely it is. It's interesting, when you are passionate about something and then you have the opportunity to also spread that passion to people that are either interested about the topic or they just don't know anything about the topic, and you just, you're the person that actually gets to introduce them to it or whatever it happens to be. It's awesome because one, you get to talk about it because you love it anyway, but two, you also might infect others with the passion that you have for something. So absolutely, it's awesome.
Yeah, and the fulfillment you get from helping people once you've shared. And a lot of people ask, you can just go away and buy more businesses and or keep doing what you're doing, which I am. I could make more money and print more money that way. But I think people miss that fulfillment piece in business, like personal fulfillment, when if it's only about the money, you're missing a piece of what's really critical for, I would say, overall happiness. But wow, we're getting so deep so quickly.
Just diving in head first,
Yeah.
for sure. Might as well just go for it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's tame it back a notch and just dive straight on into YouTube. So, as I mentioned to you before we hit record, a lot of people listening to this are people that are looking to buy an online business. And a lot of people are saying, Jared, YouTube is a thing. Should I be doing YouTube marketing? How should I be doing it? And that's why I reached out to you and said, hey, can we have a chat on the podcast? And so say somebody's bought an online business, say e-commerce, because it's more prominent that somebody's going to start marketing their e-commerce products, whether that's physical or digital. What's the first sort of step if somebody's selling, a digital product or a physical product, and they want to look into YouTube? Like, do they just start a YouTube channel and chuck some, imagery up and a couple of photos? Like, what are the most important, couple of things that people need to be doing to set up a good YouTube channel?
Sure. So when it comes to a YouTube channel, it's really an advantage to come into YouTube as a business owner, because you are already somebody that has that is thinking of things in a different way. You understand the importance of marketing. You understand the importance of, conversions and things like that. So because of that, when you come onto YouTube and you first start approaching YouTube, you basically take a lot of the concepts that come with running a business and you apply them directly to a YouTube channel. So for example, if you are going to buy an e-commerce business, then there's a really good chance you're going to do a lot of research to figure out, okay, who is it that we're actually trying to reach with this e-commerce business? Where is it that they're hanging out online so that we can advertise there? What influencers are in that space that we can reach out to collaborate with, that sort of thing. So because of that, when you approach your YouTube channel, the same exact thing applies to where you want to look at it and you want to say, first, what is it that we're trying to accomplish here? If we're trying to drive sales, then that's the key metric that we need to make sure that we're focusing on. But beyond that, who is it that we're actually trying to reach with our content? And it doesn't necessarily have to be, hey, this is what our website is about. And because of that, we're just always making videos about our website. It can be just a unique type of value that you add to your YouTube channel that actually gets in front of the right people that would be candidates to buy something from your website or, a product or service that you have. So, thinking of who it is that you're actually after in the first place, so that you can make sure that you're making content that they care about, that you're writing titles in a way that that particular type of person is most likely to react to, that you're using imagery in your thumbnails and maybe text in your thumbnails if you decide to go that route, that particular type of viewer is most likely to respond to. In addition to that, any music that you're adding in your videos or the pacing of your videos in terms of your edits, like all of these different things get impacted by who it is that you're actually making the content for in the first place. But at the start, figure out exactly what it is that you want the channel for. And then from there, you got to figure out who you're making content for so that you can make sure that you do everything appropriately so that you can get in front of those people and actually reach them and convert them into a click, and then hopefully convert them into a long-term viewer as well as a sale of some kind.
So say they pick up, they decide I'm going to create a YouTube channel and they talk about, barbecue rubber. Maybe that's not the only, maybe people aren't searching on YouTube just, barbecue rubber type stuff. Maybe they're looking at how they can clean their barbecue or how they can preserve their barbecue and solving a problem with their videos. Is that a thing? Is that important?
Without question. And that's one of the things that once you decide who it is that you're making content for and you decide what it is that, you're ultimately trying to accomplish, is you have to figure out the right content to make that's going to actually lead people into your product or service. So the really cool thing about YouTube, actually a bunch of really cool things, but I'll talk about just a couple here really quick. But the first one is the search discovery systems in YouTube itself. Basically what that means is when somebody goes and they look on the search side, if somebody goes and they look for something on YouTube or on Google or on any of the textual search engines as well, one of the things that's going to happen is YouTube is going to show videos based on that query. And the same exact thing goes for the other search engines as well, to where if that particular query gets a lot of response when they do show video results, then your video can also show up on regular search engines as well. So because of that, on the search side, you have the opportunity to make an evergreen piece of content, which is basically content that's going to be as good now and as relevant now as it would be in like 5 years or 10 years or technically forever for evergreen content. But the idea is that you can create a bunch of search-based content based around things that will lead people into your particular product or service. So once you actually make that content, as long as it's decent content and people respond to it, then in that situation, it can end up in a great spot in YouTube search. It can end up in some top spots on search engines as well. And what you do is you basically create all of these assets that will continually drive traffic to your product or service. Now, in addition to search, you also have the built-in discovery systems of YouTube, which is their recommendation features. Now, a lot of people will target YouTube search thinking only of, YouTube search. But like I said before, you also tap into the search engines as well. However, a majority of the watch time on YouTube actually comes from their recommendation features. And what those are is when people log onto YouTube, when you log into YouTube and you just happen to, open up your app, or you're on your computer and you open up YouTube, the things that you are seeing in front of you are the things that their system has determined that you're most likely to watch and enjoy at that particular time, based on your habits of using the platform and based on habits of other people that use the platform like you and the content that they respond to. And this is where it starts to get powerful. So the really cool thing about this is when you do make that plan of, this is the type of content that I'm trying to make, this is who it is that we're trying to reach, and this is the type of content that's going to lead them into our products or services. The really cool thing about YouTube is that it's kind of like audience matching if you do anything with advertising, like Facebook ads, for example. Yep. So basically how it works is based on or based on a particular viewer's user history and how they interact with the platform and the content they like and don't like, and they watch for a long time and they share and things like that. Then YouTube starts to identify that this particular viewer, they're watching a lot of videos on this particular topic and they're responding well. So then if you have videos on your channel that people respond to well, in terms of they click it at a fair rate, they watch it for a competitive amount of time so that YouTube deems it as a satisfactory experience for their viewers, then one of the really cool things that happens is that YouTube will actually go out on your behalf and they find essentially customers for you, because you're able to tap into that audience matching that they do based on the content that other people enjoy, that actually leads them into the content that you make. So it can turn your YouTube channel into a cash cow in that particular situation, to where you are just constantly driving traffic to everything it is that you're doing. And all you have to do is just upload quality videos that people enjoy.
Yeah, it makes sense that most of the watch time is from suggested videos, either in the sidebar or when you log into the platform. Because when I use YouTube, if I want to go watch something on YouTube, normally it's a surfing video. I'll just go in and there's a bunch of them. And, even just click, even if I'm on the TV, I'll just click the surfing tab and just scroll through. I won't even search for a particular type of video. I'll just wait till a good one pops up, and that makes total sense. So people can see now, all right, if I can get good quality videos out there and I can solve a problem, and then what I can do with those videos that are good quality, I can solve a problem, is push people to my e-commerce business, my site, and make some sales. But first, there's a big thing in between, is like, how do we create this content? So are we doing some keyword research, like what people would do if they're going to write good articles? Are we, looking at other YouTube videos and going, oh, this is getting ranked quite high, and we can kind of, if that's in our space, we can kind of go, well, we can create a more valuable video than that, with some of the things they've missed out. Like, how do we find out what sort of videos we should be creating for our particular niche?
So the actual type of videos is the videos that are going to lead people into your products or services. If you're creating a channel for business, if you're doing it because you want to have fun or share love for a hobby, totally different thing. But if you're using YouTube for business, then you need to create the content that's going to lead people into your product or service. So once you are in that process of actually creating the content itself, the very first step, of course, is what you mentioned before about, the actual research, like how do you decide what videos to make? So the very first thing, of course, that you can do is you can poll your current customers. If you have current customers, and ask them the type of videos they watch, ask them, the specific channels that they're fans of and things like that. So you can get an idea of the person that's typically buying your products or services, the type of content that they typically watch, and see if that gives you any clues. In addition to that, any content that will just complement, what it is that you're doing, when people will find it and then give you the opportunity to spread awareness about your business. But in addition to that, when you are researching, a lot of people will keyword research, and they'll do keyword research, and they'll just look for like search volume, for example. But when they're doing that, they don't necessarily keep in mind the people that are already showing up for those search results and the channels that are actually dominating some of those search results.
Or not even searching and doing what I do and just going to suggested videos, right?
Say that one more time.
Or not even going to the search, not using the search in YouTube and just going to suggested videos. Is that something that we need to consider when we're creating new content too?
Yeah, absolutely consider that. But one thing that you should do first, so that you can be very specific about the suggested videos that you are seeing, is if you have a topic. Okay, so let's say that you're doing some research and you're like, these are specific keywords that we want to try to show up for. And when you're doing keyword research on YouTube, it's important to not just think about search, but it's important to think about the people that are going to be able to identify those keywords based on things that they are interested in. And it's also important to think about those keywords giving context to YouTube systems about what your video is actually about. So when it comes to YouTube, when you're doing your keyword research, it's more about that. It's more about the context side and how do I make it crystal clear to the people that we're trying to reach that this particular video is for them. On YouTube, that's where the keyword research really comes into play, more than a textual search engine, or more than like a blog post, for example, to where you're just optimizing everything around the actual term itself. And then you're just trying to keep people on the page for a long time. And then of course, get them to go deeper into the blog if possible. YouTube, it kind of works in a similar way. And this is why making quality content is important, because just like on a blog where you have to keep people on a page for a certain amount of time, not a certain amount of time, but you have to keep on-page time is a thing.
It is a thing.
So
yeah. Same
YouTube,
with on-page, on video time is a huge thing, right?
Yeah, so it's watch time is basically what it is on YouTube. So because of that, they give us, analytics that show us exactly what our watch time looks like in every single video, so that we can make our content decisions and how we're editing and the things that we're doing in videos. So we can base all of that around how people are responding to what it is that we're doing. But at the end of the day, you just want to think about, okay, the keywords or keyword phrases that, or the topics really overall that are the most important to the people that we're trying to reach in order to get them to be in contact with us so that we can lead them into our product or service. Of course, then with that, you can use tools like TubeBuddy, for example, which is a browser plugin for YouTube content creators. SEMrush is also, something I'm sure a lot of you, if you're doing like e-commerce and things like that already, you're probably already using SEMrush.
Yeah, Ahrefs is a very common tool for people in our space. Yeah.
And Ahrefs and, all of that. So, it's important to just make sure that you are doing that research. But at the end of the day, here's what's going to make the difference for you on YouTube. Metadata is important because it gives context to their system right out of the gate when you publish your video. The thing that's actually going to move the needle for you on YouTube, if you're trying to bring attention to your business, your product or service, is that you have to get really good at, in addition to, including your keyword, you also have to get really good at just making compelling titles and thumbnails, because that is one of the main factors that's going to determine if your video is going to continue to get shown to other people. And in addition to that, you also have how long people are actually watching your videos for. And those two things combined are the most important things when it comes to having a YouTube channel. You got to get people to click, and you got to be able to get people to watch for an acceptable amount of time based on your content and what YouTube deems satisfactory for the content that you are uploading. So because of that, when it comes to search-based stuff, a lot of people that are coming from like the blog or website world, they'll try to apply all of that stuff to YouTube, and they think to themselves, hey, why isn't this working out? Why am I not, showing up for these particular results and things like that? I have this optimized, perfectly and all of that. However, they're not able to get people to click at a high rate based on their competitors, or they're not able to keep people watching for a long enough time compared to the competitors. And because of that, the people that are able to do those things will end up surfacing instead of you, or in front of you in the search results. So because of that, it's really important, if you really want to get serious results on YouTube, that you spend as much time as needed actually working on the content itself in terms of topic, title, thumbnail, and the actual percentage viewed of your video or total watch time that you're getting for your video, because those are the things that are going to move the needle more than anything you can do with your YouTube channel.
I love that. So they're two main buckets, right? You've got bucket number one, which probably comes first, is getting people to click through onto and watch the video. And there's a certain few things that go into that, which I want to come back to. Then you got bucket number two, which is, creating engaging content, which is watch time. Now, coming back to that first bucket, I actually saw that Noah Kagan
Mhm.
hires a full-time person for CTR, which is click-through rate, to have optimized the videos to have very clickable titles and very clickable thumbnails. That's a pretty big thing for YouTube videos, right? Like a lot of time
Without
should
question.
probably go into that.
You know, the first point of contact, and it's like this with everything on the internet, right? So the first point of contact is if you can get a person to click or not, right? It's your first point of contact on the internet is somebody seeing your post, somebody seeing your your website
Title to
page,
anything.
actually
Yeah.
presented to them somewhere, or on YouTube, it's them actually seeing your thumbnail. On TikTok, it's them, being able to grab their attention just with the video itself when it first opens up. But with all these things, it's basically when people initially have that first opportunity to interact with whatever it is that you're doing, your ability to get them to convert them into a click to start experiencing the stuff that you do, that very first point of contact is like the live and die point when it comes to anything that you're doing online. Because if you can't master the art of getting people to click on what it is that you're doing, then you're dead in the water right out of the gate. It doesn't matter what else you're doing behind the scenes. If people never click on that, then what's behind that click is they're never going to experience it. So because of that initial point of contact, getting them to actually click on whatever it is that you're doing is extremely important, and YouTube's the same. And I also want to make it, I also want to mention something else really quick. So I mentioned in terms of moving the needle, the thumbnail and the title and the topic, getting people to click on that and then watching the video. Of course, it's a lot more complex than that. Like engagement is also a factor and things like that. But the factors that are the most heavily weighted are your topic, title, thumbnail, and of course, how long, or basically your conversion, your click through, and how long people are watching the video content for. So I just wanted to make that clear really quick, so people aren't like, oh, okay, this is all I have to do, because there's other things as well, in terms of they're tracking everything that's happening on the video watch page when people are interacting with your content, and all of it gets summarized up into if they deem your video a satisfactory experience to keep showing their users on the platform or not.
Yeah, right. They actually watch the level of engagement and your drop off rate, or and your spike rate if there's something that's interesting. And I want to come back to engagement because that's why I highlighted these are two very important buckets, like click through rate, which contains great title, clickable title, and a clickable thumbnail, and then the next bucket is watch time. So we've got those two very, very important things. Yes, there's a lot of other things that go on in the background. But I want to ask about, what would be 2 to 3 things that we can do or we can be conscious of to ensure that we can get great clickable titles or clickable thumbnails, and then we'll come back to the watch time and level of engagement. So, and what are some of the tactics people can do with their, titles and thumbnails to make them clickable?
So the very first thing is understanding who it is that you're making content for in the first place. Because then that allows you to craft everything towards that audience and what it is that they're likely to respond to. In addition to that, you also have making sure that you're putting the thing that's going to grab their attention as close to the front of the title as humanly possible. So if that's a keyword, if that's the thing that's actually compelling about it, you want to make sure that you put that as close to the front of the title as possible. And the reason for that is because on YouTube, they truncate titles at around the 50 character mark. So because of that, if you have this big long thing where you're trying to kind of build up the hype to what it is that you're doing, but the thing in your title that people would actually care about is towards the end of your title, then in that situation, if it gets truncated in one of the features on YouTube, then they won't even see that part that they care about. So because of that, if you're talking about, and I'm just going to look at things laying around the room, for example. So like if I was making videos about an iPad, then in that situation, if I'm trying to reach people that are iPad users that would care about that content, I would make sure that the word iPad would be as close to the front of the title as possible, so that those people would be able to identify that video is about something that they can relate to. Now, of course, you can also do that through the imagery that you're using in your thumbnails as well. But one of the things that you want to make sure that you're doing when you are writing your titles and your thumbnails is that you're looking at them like a package. So it's not just, I have to make this amazing thumbnail, or I have to make this amazing title, or I have to make them separately. It's very important to make sure that you're thinking about how do these two work together. So if my thumbnail grabs somebody's attention, then the next logical step there is they go down to the title, because I've stopped them, they're on their phone scrolling through, and I've stopped them in the feed with my thumbnail. So then they go down, they see my title. What is it in my title that's going to push them over the edge? And it's really important that when you're putting your thumbnails and titles together, that you can define these things. So for example, when you're putting a thumbnail together, define, this is exactly why we think that this particular thumbnail is going to stop people on their tracks when they're scrolling through their feed or when it shows up on a homepage. This title, this specific part about this title is why we think that people will click on this. We're not just putting a title together to describe the video. We're actually defining the things that we think within our title are going to cause people to click on what it is that we're doing. So that by itself will help you make better thumbnails and titles, because a lot of people will just do it because they think that, okay, I've got the video up. Now the very last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to write a title for this. I'm going to put a thumbnail on it, but you'll actually end up working in a better way if you can come up with a thumbnail idea and you can come up with a title before you even make the video, because that will make your hook a little bit better in your video as well, because you know exactly how it's going to be packaged from the outside. And when you are putting your thumbnails and titles together, it's also really important to think about the expectation that your thumbnail and title are building up for that click. So let's say, for example, that you say something in your thumbnail and title and it's really intriguing and people click on it. Well, if right out of the gate, they don't have some type of confirmation that they're in the right place, or you don't start leading on to or teasing that they're going to get what it is that they're expecting from the outside, then in that situation, you'll see your audience retention just dive. But if you can confirm when the video opens that the promise that you gave them on the outside is definitely something that they're going to get, or something that you're going to lead them into in the video itself, then you're going to get a much better result in your audience retention, for example. So, those are some tips. I think I went over 3, but those are some things that are really important to make sure that you're keeping in mind when you're writing thumbnails and titles on YouTube.
No, we love the over delivery. I think that's so powerful in working at the opposite way of, I'm going to create a video and then put a title around it and a thumbnail. I just want to make things really clear for some people, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but from the understanding that I get is that the thumbnail and the title, the text doesn't need to be the same. In fact, it could be different in the thumbnail and different in the title, as long as they're complementary. Is that what you're getting at?
Without question. And in addition to that, you don't have to have text in your thumbnails either. Like, put text in your thumbnails if it's needed, if it's required for the type of content that you're making, or to add clarity or something like that. But you don't have to have text in your thumbnails. Like, a lot of people, when they're doing YouTube videos, they'll see that a lot of people are using text, so then they'll default, oh, I need to have this text in my thumbnail. Yeah. Now, depending on what it is that you are doing with your thumbnails and the type of content you're making and all of that, having text can be advantageous, but in a lot of cases, it can also work against you, because when people are adding text to their thumbnails, a lot of people will also put tons of text in their thumbnails. And when you do that, then you start muddying everything up. And the idea is your thumbnail, the job of your thumbnail is to grab somebody's attention. Of course, if you can, with the type of content that you make, also having your thumbnail to where it, as a standalone, could also generate a click as a win. And in some cases, text can do that. But depending on the type of content that you make, I would definitely A/B test and experiment with thumbnails with text and thumbnails without text for the type of content that you make and for the audience that you are trying to reach, because people respond differently and channels need to do things differently based on the people that they're trying to get in front of and the type of content that they make.
Great. Wow. That's so powerful. Thank you so much. So, there's so much in getting that click, just in, you mentioned there. Now, talking about engagement, we don't want to have content that's not congruent, like you said, with the title and the thumbnail. So I guess one tip for good engagement is to have the content be very congruent, but we want to ensure we keep them engaged the whole way through the video, right? So what would two to three things be that we can do to keep them engaged? I mean, it's going to be I think it's going to be dependent on the niche and the industry and the video, whether it's a talking head or it's, an entertainment type piece. But what are like a broad couple of things that people could, do with their content to keep engagement, or watch time, I should say, sorry.
Oh, no problem. So basically, when it comes to keeping people engaged on your video, the very first thing to think about, and I recommend that you do this through the whole entire process of your YouTube channel, consider the viewer experience with everything it is that you're doing. So basically when you write a thumbnail and title, define why they should click on those. And then once they actually click into the video itself, when your video first starts, think to yourself when you're putting your video together, okay, how can I grab somebody's attention here? How can I confirm that they're in the right place? And how can I hook them with this opening of the video? So depending on the type of content that you make, we'll just say talking head for this example. Then in that situation, you just want to open it up and say, today I'm going to show you how to do XYZ, or today we're talking about XYZ, or on the show today we have XYZ and they're going to cover XYZ, or whatever it happens to be there. If you're doing entertainment type content, then in that situation, letting them know, in this video, we're going to be, we're going to be climbing this entire big mountain that's behind me, and we're going to do it in less than 15 minutes. So let's go. So basically what you're doing in that situation is you're just confirming that what it is that they clicked on, they're getting the right thing. Now, if you're doing vlog style content around what it is that you're doing, then in that situation, when it opens up, having something exciting or something funny, or maybe a build up to something just getting ready to happen, and then it cuts to where you start the content from there. But the idea is that you want to, we call it a hook, but you basically want to hook the viewer at the very front of your video so that you can keep them watching at least for another minute or so. And once you get them through that hook, a lot of people, just for the sake of the segue, will drop like this big long intro in there. So for example, I went and looked at a channel today. Somebody sent me a DM on Instagram and they're like, hey, I have this YouTube channel. It's about like monster trucks, but they're like, hey, I've got this YouTube channel and we get, like a lot of views, but just wondering if you had any tips for things that we could do better. And I looked at their channel, and the very first thing that I saw is they had a great hook, right? Like it was like this thing like climbing out of the mud, this monster truck climbing out of it was pretty epic hook. Awesome. But then after that, they had like an 18-second intro, like it was a TV show. And unfortunately, those longer intros, when somebody's first interacting with the content, it can be okay, because in that situation, they don't even realize in a lot of cases that they're even getting an intro unless it actually has text on the screen.
Is this an intro? Sorry to stop you. Is this an intro of like the brand type thing where they put like a bit of music and, a bit of B-roll type thing as a, okay, now I got you.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And some people also just do like a logo, and they'll have all this stuff, about a logo. And a lot of business owners will do that too, because they're trying, they understand the importance of branding. So because of that, they'll have this big long thing, and it'll talk about, their company, or show all these different like success things for the company, or whatever it happens to be. But at the end of the day, it's important to think about that viewer experience, right? Like when you go onto YouTube, if you put yourself in this situation, if you go onto YouTube, how many times you go on the platform, like, man, I hope I get to sit through like a long intro today. I really hope that I get to see some really cool intros on the platform. It's not what you do, right? You go on the platform because you're just looking for something to kill time. You're looking to be entertained or educated or whatever it happens to be. So while you are interacting with that content, what you'll see is if you're currently using an intro, and everybody that's listening to this or watching this can go and look in your own stats for this. But if you go and you look at your audience retention at your intro, you're going to see a drop. And that drop might be severe to where you're losing, 10, 15% of your viewership during that intro. Or it could be a 2 or 3% drop during that intro. And a lot of people will also think, well, I'm only losing like 1 to 2% of the people here, and it allows me to get my branding on the screen. And they're just thinking about that one video. But the thing is, over the course of a YouTube channel, you're going to upload, hundreds, if not thousands of videos, depending on how long the platform's around. And over time, that 1 to 2% is going to end up accumulating into a very large amount of people that you're missing the opportunity to sell your products or services to, because you wanted to put a branded logo in there.
Not only that, for somebody wanting to repeat watching videos because they're good content, for me, in my mind, I'm like, I don't really want to watch the videos anymore, because every single one I've got to sit through this stupid thing.
Right. And some people will skip it, which is fine. They'll skip it. Like, you like regular viewers and stuff, they'll typically come in and skip it if they're a subscriber. But even with that, you're causing them to have to take action of some kind further. Instead of sitting back and enjoying your content, you're causing that particular viewer to have to actually do something to avoid something in your content in order to get to the stuff that they actually care about. So because of that, it's really important that you are considering that. So basically you want to hook them, and then you want to get into the content. If you are going to do a logo intro, which is fine if you want to do one, but if you are going to do it, try to keep it as short as possible. And by short, I mean like a 3 to 5 second thing. That way you can get people into the actual content that they clicked on, that they care about, that they want to see, that they've been proven that they're interested in. That's why they clicked on it. So you can get them to that part as quick as humanly possible. Now, another thing when it comes to retention is there's something called open loops when it comes to making videos. And the idea here is that as you are progressing through the content, if possible, tease stuff that's going to be coming up later. So they're called open loops because basically you open the loop by saying something like, yeah, and I'm going to show you how to do that particular thing right here in just a few minutes. And then you just keep talking about what it is that you're doing. So the people that care about that thing, you just basically hook them again. And then you get to close that loop when you actually start showing them the thing that you told them that you're going to be showing them here in a minute. And you basically just keep that happening over and over again through the content that you're making. When you get to the end of the video, another thing that's also really important is a lot of people that upload videos to YouTube. I'm saying a lot of people here in this conversation. I just keep saying a lot of people, but a lot of people do this. But basically when you're putting up videos on YouTube, people will complete the video before the video is actually finished. And what I mean is they'll say things like, and that's how you do this, or that's why we think this, or, and if you try that, then everything should start, blah,
like
blah, blah.
conclusion.
Or in summary, this video is about, X, Y, Z. So make sure you have whatever. So what's happening in that situation is people start to, and you can see all this in your own audience retention reports, because it's like this 100% of the time. But basically when people identify that your video is coming to a close, even without you saying, hey, thanks for watching, you'll start seeing your audience retention drop off there before you have the opportunity to get them to click on another video. So if you are going to add those things to the end of your video, it's really important to make sure that you have your in-screen elements present on the screen. And what your in-screen elements are, if you're not on YouTube already, it's basically those boxes that pop up at the end of your video. It's a very positive signal for YouTube. How we were talking before about making content people enjoy. Super positive signal for people to watch your video to the end and then click on another one of your videos and go watch that. That is a huge quality indicator for YouTube in terms of you are making content that the people that they are showing it to on their platform, their users, that those people are enjoying it so much that they're watching through the content and they're clicking and watching more of the content that you have. If you can do that and you can keep that process happening over and over, your YouTube channel will do awesome.
I love that. And since me just learning a little bit about YouTube, for those of you who are listening and they're not on my YouTube channel, what are you even doing? But in all seriousness, like I have learned that sometimes playlists can be good because you can create one video, link to another one, to another one, to another one, to another one, and it can be like a whole education series. Now, I could be totally wrong in where I learnt that, but is that something that you teach or, you see people use?
Without question. So driving people into playlists. Okay. So let's go to the why. Let's talk about why that's important. So when it comes to YouTube, basically the recommendation features that we were talking about before and how powerful they are. One of the ways that YouTube decides what to show next to other videos is topical relationships and data relationships between content. So what that means is if you're watching a video about iPads, then there's a really good chance that other iPad or Apple related things are going to be over in the sidebar or underneath the video if you're watching on a mobile. The same exact thing applies if people are watching content together. That's the data relationship. So the topical relationship is 2 videos about iPads. The data relationship is people watch video A and then they typically watch video B because it's either being suggested next to the platform or the content creator themselves are driving viewers into a playlist or into that next video. So the really cool thing about playlists is you get to maximize that data relationship. So what that means is if you have a video that somebody's watching and you have an in-screen element, the boxes that pop up at the end of your video, and that's driving people into a playlist, and that playlist is something that people are watching 3 or 4 videos out of, well, all of a sudden you're going to start noticing that you start getting a lot more suggested traffic to your own content. You become your own suggested traffic source because you start getting people into your content, and YouTube identifies that not only are you driving people into it, but since you are driving people into that playlist, and if people are responding positively to that playlist, then YouTube will take you out of that equation. So you will be working on your behalf, but YouTube will start working on your behalf as well by suggesting some of the other videos that are in that playlist next to the video that they are currently watching. So it's a really powerful thing that you can take advantage of in order to suggest more traffic to yourself as well.
Awesome. So playlists for the win.
Totally.
So when we're, so we've gone through so much, right? Setting up a channel, how to create the content, why to create the content, how to keep people there and grow the channel. at this stage, people are probably thinking, all right, cool, I need to get on YouTube here. And undoubtedly YouTube is, I don't know where it ranks in the top search engine, but is it not the second biggest search engine in the world?
Yeah, second largest search engine on the planet, and it's only second to Google, who owns YouTube, Alphabet, who owns YouTube. So the really cool thing about that is, since they are, since they're owned by the same company, the really awesome thing is that your YouTube videos, if they perform well and their systems on both ends can detect what your video is about, when somebody's looking for something on Google, then your videos can show up there as well. So then you not only are taking advantage of the video side, but you're also taking advantage of your content showing up on the textual search engines like we were talking about before, which can lead people into your channel, which then can make them a regular viewer and or convert them into, a customer for your product or service.
Yeah, great. Now, this is where people go, all right, cool. Jared, Nick, YouTube, massive amount of people using it, can definitely grow some traffic to my site and some sales. Like I need to start learning or working out how I can create some videos. Now, this is where fears are going to pop up for people, I believe, in, all right, we'll get to this. What do we record with and how do we record? But like also what sort of videos do we do? So do you have suggestions for people that don't want to just talk into the camera and be a talking head? And do you have suggestions for people that, may have a product and they don't want their own voice and they want to create videos anyway? So these people that don't want to be in front of the camera but want to create videos, what are some of the things that they can do? Because I know it's a scary thing for people to get in front of the camera.
I was afraid. Like my very first video is about overcoming camera shyness because I didn't want to be on camera either. So I'm right there with you. So everybody that's like afraid of being on camera,
me too.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
So when it comes to making content without showing your face or your voice, I mean, of course, the obvious choice there is to hire people. Like if you're a business owner and you have, if you can allocate some of your budget to hiring somebody to make content, then do that. And the reason that is a win is because personalities on YouTube can typically move the needle way more than just an animation, for example. And the reason for that is because people connect to people, right? So people like the personalities of people, and anybody that has any type of business, they understand the know, like, and trust factor and how important that is. So because of that, when you have that personality, then what you're doing is you are giving yourself the opportunity for people to get to know that person, because there's something called parasocial interaction or parasocial relationships. And it's basically the idea of one-sided relationships. And it's typically something that you hear about in like Hollywood, to where you have your favorite characters of your TV shows or your movies. And then if you were to you happen to see that person on the street, if you're like a super fan, if you happen to see that person on the street, then you might actually approach them as that character, or maybe expect them to behave like the character that they play on TV, but you get to know, like, and trust them based on the actual character that they play. The cool thing about YouTube is that whole thing gets intensified because you are actually looking directly at the people. You're not watching it from a fly in the wall perspective like you typically do in Hollywood. So that whole thing gets intensified in terms of your, how people are connecting to you as the content creator, the person that you have creating content for you. This is such a powerful thing that it's something crazy. Like it was like 70%, I believe, or maybe high 60s of kids surveyed. It was teenagers surveyed, believed that their favorite YouTubers knew them better than their friends did, which is crazy, considering that the only interactions that most of them probably had with other YouTubers, at least their favorites, was in the comment section, if they even got a reply. But it's just because they sit there and they watch, day in, day out, their favorite content creators. For me personally, anytime I go to a conference or anything like that, I have people walk up to me, hey, I feel like I've known you for years. I've been watching your content. And it's cool for me because the ice is already broken, right? But the thing is that person, they come up and they've been watching the content for a long period of time and they feel like they know me. And, I might have only interacted with that person in the comments, for example, or maybe a tweet or something. But outside of that, they're like, oh, hey, I feel like we've been hanging out and all this stuff, because they hang out in my live streams and that sort of thing. So they understand the nuances of my personality and they've got to know me through the content that I put out. So because of all of that, having an actual face behind what it is that you do is important. This is why major companies pay, they endorse like athletes and influencers and things like that because of the importance of people, building up that know, like, and trust factor for the brand through that particular influencer. So if possible, try to have a person, but if you can't, then in that situation, you can do like overhead shots. Like, let's say that you have a product, let's say that you're doing microphones, because I've got one here on the screen. So basically, if you are somebody that sells microphones, and in that situation, just an overhead camera shot to where it's a top down shot. And all you do is you just talk about the microphone, you're showing the microphone and how to connect it and put it together and all of that different stuff. If that happened to be the type of videos that you were making to sell microphones, but you can do that type of thing where you're not actually showing your face. You would still hear your voice in that situation, but you're not showing your face. And then of course there's the animation side of things. Now with animation, you're going to be paying somebody for it. With voiceovers, you're going to be paying somebody for it. If you're going to be paying somebody for it anyway, find somebody to pay to make the videos for you so that you can have the personality side. What I would do in that situation is I would scour the internet. I would scour YouTube for new content creators to where you're like, hey, that person has a really great personality. I think they'd be a great fit for my brand. Go and research them. Look at their Twitter account, look at their Reddit account, their past Reddit history, look at their Facebook account, and make sure that they're the type of person that is a good representation of your brand as well, that they're not, saying all types of hateful things on Twitter that you don't want it attached to your brand. But basically the idea is that you find that newer content creator, because what they're trying to do in a lot of cases is they are trying to figure out, how do I actually work through making video content? So they want to be a full-time content creator. They want to make videos all the time. And with you as a business owner, you have the opportunity to actually provide that bridge for somebody to where you can work with them and help them build the personality of your brand through YouTube. And then they get what they want, which is, they get to make videos all the time. I have a friend of mine here locally in Thailand. He makes videos for a company called HairGuard. And it's a great relationship that they have. He cranks out videos for him all the time, and they have a great relationship. They've been building the channel together. I've made videos for Empire Flippers, which a lot of your listeners are probably familiar with. A few years ago, made a nice handful of videos for them. I've worked with Uscreen, making videos for them, which I still make videos for them from time to time as well. And it's because all of these places, they understand the importance of having, an actual face on the brand itself.
I'm glad you said that, because it can be easy for people to go, all right, well, I'll just have some B-roll and I'll talk over it with my product and stuff like that. But that connection thing is so powerful. In fact, one of the businesses that I just bought into a couple of months ago, it's in the parenting space, the baby space, and they have, I'm not a parent, and my business partner is a parent, but just not wanting to be the face of the brand. So we have a person who is a parent that wants to talk about being a parent and is just this awesome personality. And it's that bridge, like you said. So there are, I think, for people that are a bit camera shy or don't want to spend their time on the camera, there are those people out there. I'm so glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah. And with that too, like as a business owner, you're focused on the business. Yep. So, every minute that you're spending making videos, you're taking away from the time that you could be spending developing the business. So because of that, just look at content creators, just like you look at, you look for your VAs, and just like you look for, people to help you do maintenance on your website and people to help you make content for your blogs and things like that. A content creator for YouTube is the same exact thing. They're just doing it in video format compared to written format. So, the person that you choose, they're probably going to charge you a little bit more. They should anyway. They may or may not, but they should charge you a little bit more because, the video content does take some time to put together. But in addition to that though, using content creators to make videos is also going to allow you to put that content on other platforms as well. So depending on the approach that you take with your video content and exactly what it is that you're making videos about, you might be able to actually reuse either parts of the videos that they make or the videos in their entirety to post them on Twitter and LinkedIn and, parts of them on TikTok and, all over the place. Right.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful for e-com, like selling products such as microphones, is to have those videos on YouTube, but have them embedded on the actual product description pages and stuff like that. And when you can make a product description page so valuable and so powerful, not only does you getting cross-pollination of traffic to your YouTube channel and then back to the product page, but also Google sees that as a very valuable product description. It's going to send more people there with organic SEO, and just the cross-pollination of how this can work. YouTube with a website is just magic. It
Yeah,
really
just
is. And
content in general, like YouTube, like all of it,
yeah,
we're talking about YouTube right now, but just content in general as a way to bring traffic to what it is that you're doing. It's basically, it's not free advertising if you're not making it yourself. Even if you're making it yourself, you still got to get cameras and stuff, and you got to
you got
spend
to pay. Yeah,
money.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, you create that video one time, and you can just keep using that video. I mean, of course, you would just upload it to YouTube one time, but you can also use that video on your website. You can use it on, all the other social media platforms, and really just use it, to distribute your message or awareness about your product or service all over the internet, in addition to
perfect.
the blog posts and things that you're already doing.
Yeah, spot on. And so another fear people are going to have, and we'll finish this one up quickly, is that, all right, do I spend $2,000 on a camera? Do I spend $500 on a microphone? When they're first starting, is it okay to use a phone and a lapel mic? And that could be for the person that's, recording it for you, or for yourself if you're doing it. How do we start out, with the gear?
It's important to think about, just like if you were to have a brick and mortar, or just like you look at the pages of your website, it's important to consider that the equipment that you're using in your production quality is going to be representative, or it's going to represent, I should say, your product or service. So because of that, you can absolutely just use your phone and a cheap $20 lapel mic, or not even use the lapel mic, but just use the phone itself, and you can get results that way. I have a friend of mine here in Thailand who he talks about cryptocurrency. And in his situation, he does all this content on his phone, and he's doing almost 400 grand a year off of his Patreon page, not including like YouTube ads or anything like that. He's just crushing off of his Patreon just from his phone. He's just walking around the beach talking to his phone. But the people that he's trying to reach in his particular situation, that's something that they respond to well. Now, if he was talking about microphones, for example, probably wouldn't get the same results, right? So because of that, just think about what it is that you're selling and how you can best represent what it is that you're selling based on who it is that you're trying to reach and what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So for example, if you're trying to sell like a lifestyle thing, then doing a little bit more loose vloggy type of content might be the win for you, and you can get away with that on a phone. Whereas if you are, doing information products, then in that case, you can do that on a phone as well. But if you can up the level of your production to where when people get into that video content, it's reflective of, like, hey, they can at least afford good gear and, make everything look great with whatever this product does. So because of that, I'm at least going to pay attention to this for a little bit. But I definitely am a believer that you should start with whatever you have. But if upgrades are required in order to best represent, the business or what it is that you're trying to sell, or if you're building your personal brand, then in that situation, I would just expense it, just expense it and get the camera, right? Get the thing,
it's an investment,
so that you can, represent yourself in the best way possible.
Perfect. Now, one last thing I want to talk about is timing. And I think that it's really important to address this, because now from what I've seen in anything in business or in life, the real growth comes over time with compounding. Is this something that you agree with? And what do you have to say about the time frame of building a channel for people that are going, all right, I want to dive into this? Like, what sort of warnings or advice, sage, wise advice would you have for those people trying to get a result yesterday like this? Sure. Yeah.
So when it comes to growing a YouTube channel, you might publish your videos and expect those videos to get, hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of views when you publish them. But typically that doesn't happen. And the reason that doesn't happen, especially right out of the gate, is because just like anything else that you're doing, there's skills and understanding that needs to be developed in order to take full advantage of what's going on. But in addition to that, when you first start publishing videos, let's say you have 10 videos on your YouTube channel. Well, you only have 10 videos that are bringing you viewers every day. And based on if you're sending people to other videos in your end screens or through comments or whatever, or through pinned comments, then in that situation, you're starting to create this situation where people are watching more than one video, and then your views will slowly start to increase from there on the channel as a whole. However, with that said, it is important to note that you can make your very first video and that very first video do awesome to where it brings in, a decent amount of views, you start getting sales from it and things like that. But unfortunately, that's a rare occasion. It happens, but it's a rare occasion. So when you're first starting, build in some wait time. So give yourself like a year. I know it sounds like a lot, 6 months to a year of consistently putting out 1 to 2 videos per week on YouTube, in order to start really gauging things on the effectiveness of what it is that you're doing, because it does take time to start getting momentum in most cases, because it takes time to develop the skills. Just like when you're starting to, look into, working remotely, or you start to look into buying and selling websites, you don't just show up, hey, I just ran across this website, I'm going to spend, $50,000 on a website. It doesn't work that way. You do tons of research. You look around the internet trying to get an understanding of how things work. You go through this big, long process of making sure that you understand things fully, and then you make that purchase. And because of that, YouTube is something similar, just like playing a sport or an instrument, to where when you first start, you might not even understand all the different features that you have at your disposal on the platform, or how to properly use those features. Or it might take you 3 months just getting your audience retention together where you can keep people watching for more than a minute. So, just make sure that you have some time built in for the actual learning and development process of making good content. And this is another thing, we're working with a content creator, will help you out in that situation, because that content creator, even though they might be new, they are still already ahead by knowing how to put, the content together, knowing how to edit the videos themselves, knowing, they've already got cameras, microphones, all that stuff. So they can kind of help you shortcut some of that. But if you want to do it yourself, just make sure that you are allowing yourself enough time to actually start picking up momentum, because a lot of the content that you see being recommended to you on YouTube, it's being recommended to you because it's effective, and it's effective because people click and watch that content and share it and add it to playlists and all that stuff. However, in most cases, those people that are being presented to you on the platform, when you first log into YouTube or being recommended next other videos, in most cases, their very first video wasn't that great, but they went through the process of starting to understand their stats and how people respond, and they've modified things so that by the time you open up your YouTube homepage, then they've already put in all of that work and that experience that will actually get their videos to be at a certain level to where they are worthy of showing up on your homepage. So because of that, it's just important to make sure that there is some time that you should allow for that. Now, of course, you can advertise if you wanted to. But one of the things that I always tell business owners in this situation, or typically entrepreneurs, is that when you start running money on ads, because that's typically the fastest way to anything, right? If you're trying to bring awareness to a product or service. But when it comes to YouTube, it's very important to make sure that you are able to get an organic response before you start running ads on your content. And the reason this is important is because you can spend, $20,000 on driving awareness about your YouTube channel on the platform. However, as soon as you turn off that ad spend, then what's going to happen, if you haven't learned how to get people to click and how you haven't learned how to make content that people enjoy, then what's going to happen is that's going to dry up, because all those people that you just had interact with your content, you're not able to get them to click when your content gets shown to them organically on the platform. So because of that, it's super important to make sure that you can get that organic response before you start dumping a bunch of money on the YouTube channel for ads, if you decide to take that approach.
Yeah, great. I like that you mentioned you won't be able to maintain. It's a retention thing, really, isn't it? Now, I like to look at this the same way I like to look at advertising and making wise advertising decisions in with paid ads, and also in life. The best decisions that I've made is based off feedback and data and experiences that I've already had. And when you have a YouTube channel for a year, you get to go into analytics, right? And kind of go, okay, cool. What are the videos that people are responding to most? What are the videos and titles and the thumbnails and all these things that are getting the best engagement, getting the best watch time? Knowing that is so powerful. That's where this starts to supersede itself, and you can build up that, compounding effect of going, all right, this is like, I spent a year or whatever it was to get this data. That's the way I like to look at things. Is like, I like to have the mindset of going, right, let's go away and do this and collect some data, get some experience, and see what that data has, and see what feedback we get, to go, all right, what do we need to double down on and pull that lever that's working really, really well, and make more of those types of videos, make more of those types of titles, those types of thumbnails. And I think that's I like to write off, not completely write it off, but use that time and have that understanding that, all right, I need to just stay in the trench for a certain amount of time, and then use that feedback. Isn't it powerful to use that data?
Without question. And when it comes to YouTube, things move a bit faster on YouTube. So on YouTube, you can start as long as you start getting some views coming in. Like there's going to be a threshold. I typically tell people, like once your video hits about 1,000 views, then you have enough information there for it to be statistically significant to start making some light decisions on what it is that you should be doing. But basically, let's say once your videos start getting about 1,000 views per video, it doesn't matter if that happens over a 30-day period, if it happens on day one, if it happens over 90 days, but basically you want to accumulate enough views to where the data that you're looking at is significant in some way to where you can actually start using it as a guide. But as soon as you start accumulating those views, you can go in YouTube immediately from your very first video. After 3 days, you'll get full stats to your video, and you'll start getting some initial stats right away. But basically what you want to do is you want to go in, you want to look at your click-through rate, and you don't want to just look at your click-through rate as a whole, because the way that YouTube displays it is a little bit misleading. So what they show you is they show you like an inverted pyramid, and they show you the impressions and how they led to watch time on the platform. And in that funnel is also your click-through rate. But the click-through rate that you're seeing there is actually averaged out across all their traffic sources. So a really important thing that you should make sure that you're doing is, instead of looking at that and saying, this is what our click-through rate is for this video, actually go into your traffic sources report in your analytics and see for the different traffic sources there, what your click-through rate is there, how long people are watching your videos for there, and that sort of thing in the actual traffic sources report. So then you can see how well you're competing or not in the on home pages and videos that you're getting recommended next to in search and things like that. So when you're using the actual traffic sources report, you get a lot more information than just a generalized version of how long people are watching and your click-through rate. So because of that, make sure that you do that. Also, YouTube gives us something called the audience retention report, which is a second-by-second report of how people respond to what it is that you're doing. So for example, how we were talking about the hook earlier and the intros and things like that, that's where you would go into, that's the report that you would go into to see exactly how people are responding to those different decisions that you're making in your content. So you'll see right out of the gate, was I able to hold people's attention here? If not, then you'll see a drastic drop. If so, then you'll see a little bit of a drop typically, and then you'll see it start to level out. And then the typical use of YouTube is you'll see a slow decline from there. Ultimately, you want to get as close to 100% of retention as possible in your video, but in most cases, that doesn't happen. So at the very first step, you want to shoot for about 50% completion on your video. And then from there, start building out. But if you're getting like a 20% completion on, let's say, a 10-minute video, then you have a lot of work that you need to do on the actual content itself. But in that audience retention report, it's going to show you exactly how people respond in mass so that you can start identifying mistakes that you're making in the actual video content. Now, another thing that's in the audience retention reports that people tend to overlook is they show you your audience retention based on your video, but then they also have something called relative audience retention, which you choose from a drop-down menu on that same page. And the relative audience retention shows you how your videos perform in relation to other videos of similar length on the platform. So then you can start noticing, okay, hey, I'm in this particular video, this one actually did really good. And then you'll look at that relative report and you'll see that compared to other videos of that length on the platform, you're actually doing fantastic at holding people's attention, even though maybe in your audience retention reports on that specific video, it might be lower, but it shows you from the competitive standpoint, which is an important thing on YouTube, how well you are holding their attention compared to those other videos. So you want to make sure that you're looking at those things. And then, of course, the complete rate of your video. So the complete rate is how many people are actually finishing the video. And you want to, of course, get as many people to the end of that as possible. You don't have to get everybody there, but you want to just keep increasing the complete rate of your video, of course, because, again, that's a satisfactory signal. And then, of course, you also want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on, and you can see all of this in your analytics. You want to make sure that you're also keeping an eye on your in-screen clicks as well, because it's really important that you work on your calls to action in your in-screen and that you are very specific or very picky about the specific in-screen elements that you're using in your videos, so that you can make sure that the videos that you're trying to drive traffic to are things that people are actually responding to based on, you know, the thumbnail and title of those videos that are showing up in the end screens as well. So because of that, you want to make sure that people are watching, and you find that out through your audience retention reports. You want to make sure they're clicking, which you find out through your traffic sources and your click-through rate. And then you want to get people to the end of your video as much as possible. And then of course you want to try to get people to click on your end screens once they do get to the end of the video. If you can do those things over and over again, and you can start getting them at a high rate, your channel will do awesome.
Great.
And you'll drive sales. Like you'll drive sales and you'll be like, oh my God, why didn't I start YouTube like 10 years ago?
Yeah. Wow. That last bit, Nick, is just so amazing. It's in analyzing the data and making sure you're doing the right things. People are going to have to go away and listen to that again. I just want to say I'm truly grateful for you coming on and sharing so much. Where can we send people to find out more about what you're doing?
You can go to nicknimmin.com. All roads lead to Rome, so to speak, from there. Or you can just look for Nick Nimmin on YouTube as well. It's Nick, Nimmin.
MMIN, guys. So I'll be putting links in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for coming on, Nick. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
And thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. I greatly appreciate all of you guys who subscribe, all of you guys who listen. And guys, before you go, what I want you to do is think of some business owners. You know, they may be in e-commerce, they may be starting a business and wanting to grow their business. I would suggest you share this podcast episode with them so they can see the power of YouTube, right? Think about two to three people that may be wanting to go down this route and share this podcast episode with them. Not only is it going to help them learn about YouTube and the power of it, it's going to help me reach more people and help more people make some money online. So I'd greatly appreciate it if you could share it with those people if it's going to be valuable to them. So guys, that's it for the podcast episode, and I'll see you guys on the next one.